My mom dropped the bomb as if reminding me to turn off the stove. I know you paid off the $680,000, but we are gifting the house to your brother. She didn't pause. And don't bother coming to the party. I stared at the one envelope I kept hidden containing the notarized records she didn't know I had. If my family wanted to put on a show, I was about to change the stage. My name is Sienna Garcia, and for the last 7 years, I have made a living predicting how things fall apart. I work as a senior analyst for Grapevine Risk Group in downtown Madison, Wisconsin. My office is a glass box on the 14th floor that smells perpetually of recirculated air and expensive coffee. My job is simple. I look at a company, I find the structural fracture they are ignoring, and I tell them exactly how much it will cost when it inevitably breaks. I am very good at my job because I understand that ruin rarely comes from a single catastrophe. It comes from the slow, quiet accumulation of bad decisions, disguised as good intentions. I was sitting at my desk, staring at a spreadsheet that detailed the liquidity issues of a mid-sized manufacturing firm. When my phone buzzed against the mahogany grain of the desk, it was Marjorie. My mother. I did not answer immediately. In my line of work, you learn to read the timing of a communication. A call at 2 in the afternoon on a Tuesday was not a casual check-in, it was a tactical strike. I let it buzz 3 times before I picked up, keeping my voice flat, professional. The same voice I used to tell CEOs their pension funds were insolvent. "Hello, Mom." "Sienna," she said. There was no preamble. Marjorie Hartman did not believe in warm-ups. Her voice was light, airy, the tone she used when she was asking a waiter to send back a dish she had already eaten half of. "I hope you aren't busy. I just wanted to let you know the plan for the weekend." "The graduation party," I said. "I booked the morning off." "Right, about that." She made a small, dismissive sound, like she was brushing crumbs off a table. "We have decided it is best if you don't come." The silence in my office was absolute. The hum of the server room down the hall seemed to vanish. "Excuse me? It is Logan's big day. Sienna, we want the focus to be on him. You know how you get. You have that energy. It makes people tense." She paused, and then she delivered the payload. "Besides, we have a big announcement to make, and I think it would be awkward for you to be there. Your father and I have decided to gift the house to Logan. It is his graduation present. A leg up? He is going to be the new owner." My hand tightened around the phone. My knuckles turned the color of old bone. I looked out the window at the gray Madison skyline, at the slush piling up on the streets below. "You are gifting the house," I repeated. "To Logan. Yes, he needs a foundation. You are already established. Sienna. You have your career. Logan needs this." "I see." "I knew you would understand," she said, her voice bright with a victory I had not yet conceded. "So, enjoy your weekend. We will send you pictures." The line went dead. I sat there for a long time. The screen of my computer had gone to sleep, reflecting my own face back at me. Dark eyes, sharp jaw, hair pulled back tight. I looked calm. I looked like a woman who had just been told her dinner reservation was canceled. But inside, I was running the numbers. $680,000. That was the number. Not a vague estimate, not a rounded figure. $680,000. That was the principal and interest I had poured into that house over the last 5 years. I closed my laptop. I put on my coat. I walked out of the Grapevine offices without saying a word to my assistant. The drive to my apartment was a blur of dirty snow and red taillights. I lived in a studio apartment on the east side of town, a place that smelled faintly of damp drywall and other people's cooking. It was half the size of the master bedroom in the house I had just been told was now Logan's. I walked inside, locked the door, and went straight to the closet. I pulled out the heavy plastic bin I kept hidden under a stack of winter blankets. This was not a sentimental box. There were no baby photos, no dried corsages from prom. This was a forensic archive. I sat on the floor and opened it. The smell of paper and ink rose up to meet me. I picked up the first stack, bank statements, 5 years of them. I remembered the day the panic started. I was 28, Dad had hurt his back and was out of work. The restaurant my mother insisted on running a vanity project that bled money was sinking. The foreclosure notice had been taped to the front door of the family home like a scarlet letter. Marjorie had been hysterical, weeping on the sofa, talking about legacy and appearances. Frank, my father, had just sat there, staring at his hands, the eternal neutral party. He was the Switzerland of our family. If Switzerland was broke and terrified of its own wife, "We can't lose the house, Sienna," Mom had wailed. "What will people think?" So I stepped in. I was the fixer. I was the capable one. I took over the mortgage. I looked at the transfer receipts in my hand. Every month for 60 months, $3,200. To make those payments, I had stripped my life down to the studs. I sold my Audi and bought a 10-year-old Honda that rattled when it hit 40 miles per hour. I canceled my gym membership. I stopped buying clothes. I haven't taken a vacation in 5 years. I ate rice and beans and frozen vegetables while Logan posted photos of bottle service in Cabo on Instagram. Logan, my brother, 25 years old and still finding himself. He was the project, the golden child who could do no wrong because he never did anything at all. His graduation was from an online program that took him 7 years to complete, a degree in something vague like general studies. But to hear Marjorie tell it, he was the second coming of Steve Jobs. And now, he was getting the house, my house. I dug deeper into the box, past the utility bills I had paid when the electricity was about to be cut, past the property tax receipts. I found the document I was looking for. It was a single sheet of heavy bond paper, clipped to a thicker stack. Memorandum of Trust. It was dated 5 years ago, the day I agreed to save them. I remembered the kitchen table, the way the late afternoon sun hit the dust motes dancing in the air. I had brought the papers from a lawyer friend. Marjorie had barely read them. She was just so relieved that the bank wasn't going to take her keys. She would have signed a pact with the devil if it meant keeping her address. The document stated clearly that the property was placed into a trust. It outlined the duties of the trustees, but more importantly, it outlined the rights of the beneficiary who cured the default. Me. I traced Marjorie's signature with my thumb. It was flamboyant, looping, taking up more space than it deserved. Beside it was Frank's scratchy scrawl. They had signed it. They had forgotten it. They thought it was just paperwork, the red tape you cut through to get the money. They thought I was a bank. A bank doesn't have feelings. A bank doesn't get invited to parties. A bank just pays. But they forgot that I calculate risk for a living, and the biggest risk in any contract is the human element. I reached for my phone. My hands were steady now. The cold shock had been replaced by a low, humming anger, the kind that sharpens your vision. I dialed the one number in my family that I could trust. "Corinne," I said when the line clicked open. "Sienna." Aunt Corinne's voice was sharp, gravelly from 40 years of smoking and suffering no fools. She was my mother's older sister and her polar opposite. Corinne worked in the County Register of Deeds office for 30 years before retiring. She knew where every property line in Madison was buried. She knew who really owned what. "You sound like you are about to indict someone. What happened?" "Marjorie called," I said. "She is gifting the house to Logan. This weekend. She told me not to come to the party." There was a silence on the other end. Then the sound of a lighter flicking, followed by a long exhale. "She is doing what? Gifting the house, as a graduation present." "That isn't right," Corinne said. Her voice dropped an octave. It wasn't sympathetic. It was suspicious. "Sienna, listen to me. Your mother is many things. Vain, delusional, bad with money, but she is not generous. She doesn't give away assets. She hoards them. She said it is for Logan's future." "Bullshit," Corinne snapped. "Marjorie doesn't care about Logan's future. She cares about Marjorie's image. If she is moving a prime asset like that house, and she is doing it suddenly, and she is specifically keeping you away." Corinne paused. "She is hiding something. You don't give away a house you own free and clear unless you are trying to outrun a creditor or you are trying to wash a title. I paid it off. Corinne, I sent the final wire 2 weeks ago. The mortgage is 0. "I know you did, honey. But does the title company know that Corinne's professional instincts were kicking in? Did you get the satisfaction of mortgage recorded? I have the letter from the lender. I haven't checked the registry yet. Check it, Corinne ordered. Right now. Go to the online portal. Look at the history. If they are gifting it this weekend, they must have a deed drafted. They might have even tried to slip something in before the party, so they can hand Logan the keys with a clean conscience. I am opening the laptop now, I said. I put the phone on speaker and pulled my computer onto the floor. The screen cast a blue light over the scattered papers. I navigated to the Dane County Register of Deeds website. I had done this 100 times for work. Checking assets for clients. My fingers flew across the keys. Search by address. 4209 Maple Ridge Drive. The results populated the screen. There was the original mortgage from 20 years ago. There was the foreclosure notice from 5 years ago. There was nothing about a satisfaction of mortgage. It is not showing the payoff yet, I said. The bank is slow. Keep looking, Corinne said. Look at the pending queue, the daybook. Is there anything filed in the last 48 hours? I refreshed the page. The system lagged, a spinning wheel of death that matched the churning in my stomach. Then, a new line item appeared. It was flagged as pending, unverified. It wasn't a satisfaction of mortgage. It wasn't a quitclaim deed to Logan. It was a notice of filing. Someone had physically walked into the office today, just before closing, and dropped off a document stack. The clerk hadn't indexed it fully yet, so I couldn't see the image. I could only see the document type code. My breath hitched. Sienna, Corinne asked, what do you see? There is a filing, I said. Today, at 3:45 in the afternoon, right after she called me. What is the code? It is listed as a request for modification, I said, squinting at the screen. And Corinne, there is a second entry. It is a credit check inquiry linked to the deed. A credit check. Corinne's voice went tight. You don't run a credit check to give a gift, Sienna. You run a credit check to take out a loan. The pieces clicked together in my head like the tumblers of a safe. The gift, the urgency, the banning of the one person who knew the financial history. They aren't giving him the house, I whispered. No, Corinne said, and I could hear the grim satisfaction in her voice, the sound of a hunter spotting the trap. If they have handled this gift abruptly, they are covering something up, Sienna. I don't think they are just handing over the keys. I think they are using the house again. I stared at the screen. The entry sat there, innocent and bureaucratic. Document 899021. Status received. Marjorie thought she had cleared the board. She thought she had cut me out of the picture so she could rearrange the scenery without anyone noticing the wires. She thought that because I was quiet, I was compliant. She thought that because I was family, I was safe. I looked down at the memorandum of trust in my lap. Corinne, I said, I need you to tell me exactly how to file a lis pendens. Now you are talking, Corinne said. Do you have the proof of payments? I have everything, every cent, every date. Good, because if they filed something today, the clock is ticking. You have until the recording is finalized to throw a wrench in the gears. I hung up the phone. I didn't feel sad anymore. I didn't feel the sting of rejection from being disinvited to my own brother's party. I felt the cold, sharp clarity of a risk assessment coming into focus. I picked up the memorandum of trust. I picked up the stack of bank statements that represented 5 years of my life. 5 years of missed dinners and cheap apartments and silence. My mother wanted a party. She wanted a celebration. She wanted to stand in front of our friends and family and play the benevolent matriarch. I looked at the pending file on the screen. If they wanted a show, I would give them one, but they were not going to like the ending. The house on Maple Ridge Drive did not always smell like betrayal. When I was 17, it smelled of my father's soldering iron and the heavy, floral perfume my mother wore to mask the scent of cooking grease that clung to her hair. It was a normal house in a normal subdivision, the kind of place where lawns were mowed on Saturday mornings and neighbors waved with both hands. But inside the walls, the air was always thin, as if there was never quite enough oxygen for 4 people to breathe comfortably. That was the year I learned the difference between being loved and being useful. My mother, Marjorie, had a favorite phrase for me. It was not, "I love you," or "I am proud of you." It was, "You are strong, Sienna. You can handle it." She said it when I walked home in the rain because she was too tired to drive. She said it when I stayed up until 2 in the morning helping her balance the cash register drawers from the restaurant. She said it like it was a compliment, a badge of honor she was pinning to my chest. I did not realize until much later that it was actually a dismissal. It was her way of saying that I required no maintenance, and therefore, I would receive none. Logan was different. Logan was delicate. That was the word she used. Whispered like a prayer. If Logan got a C on a history test, it was because the teacher was unfair. And Marjorie would hire a tutor she could not afford to sit with him at the kitchen table 3 nights a week. If I got an A, it was expected. If I got a flat tire on my bike, I learned to change the tube myself. If Logan scraped his knee, the world stopped until he was bandaged and soothed with ice cream. I spent my teenage years working at a grocery store called Sal's Market on the edge of town. I can still feel the cold dampness of the produce aisle seeping into my bones. I spent my afternoons stacking pyramids of apples and scanning gallons of milk, listening to the rhythmic beep of the register. Beep, beep, beep. It was the sound of my life ticking away in increments of $7.25 an hour. I saved every check. I did not spend my money on prom dresses or spring break trips. I spent it on community college tuition, because Marjorie had made it clear that the college fund was for Logan. "He needs the traditional experience," she had told me, her eyes wide and earnest. "You are smart enough to make it work anywhere. Sienna, you have that grit." So I went to class in the mornings and scanned groceries in the evenings, and I watched my mother build her mythology. She had opened a small diner downtown, a place with checkered tablecloths and overpriced comfort food. To the outside world, Marjorie was a force of nature. She was the woman who greeted every customer by name, who comped desserts for birthdays, who laughed loud and threw her head back. She was the warrior woman who was keeping her small business alive in a tough economy. But I saw the kitchen table after the lights went out. I saw the stacks of unpaid vendor invoices shoved into the junk drawer. I heard the hushed, frantic phone calls with suppliers who were threatening to stop delivering eggs and bacon. Marjorie played the part of the successful business owner perfectly, but the set pieces were held together with duct tape and panic. My father, Frank, was a ghost in his own life. He worked as an electrician, a good one, with rough hands and a permanent stoop to his shoulders. He brought home a steady paycheck, but he handed it over to Marjorie without a word. He hated conflict. He feared it the way some people fear heights. If Marjorie raised her voice, Frank would simply fade. He would go to the garage to organize his tools, or he would turn up the volume on the television until the noise of the baseball game drowned out the reality of his marriage. He loved us, I think, but he loved his peace of mind more. He chose silence every single time. The crash happened 5 years ago. I was 28 then, living in a shoebox apartment, finally making decent money at an entry-level analyst job. I came home for a Sunday dinner that felt more like a hostage negotiation. The house was quiet, too quiet. The television was off. Frank was sitting at the dining table, staring at a spot on the tablecloth. Marjorie was pacing the kitchen, her heels clicking aggressively on the linoleum. "What is going on?" I asked. Marjorie stopped pacing. She looked at me, her face pale beneath the heavy makeup. "It is a mistake," she said. "The bank made a mistake." On the table sat a pile of envelopes. They were not the friendly white ones. They were pink and yellow, the colors of urgency. I walked over and picked up the top one. It was from the mortgage lender. Notice of default. Intent to foreclose. I read the numbers. They hadn't paid the mortgage in 8 months. The arrears were staggering. The fees were piling up like snowdrifts. 8 months. I looked at Frank. He flinched but didn't look up. "Dad, you didn't know. Your mother handles the bills," he mumbled. "I was moving money around," Marjorie snapped. defensive now. The restaurant had a bad quarter. The roof at the shop needed fixing. I was going to catch up. I just needed time. You don't have time, I said, my voice shaking. You have 30 days before they put this house up for auction. I looked around the room. This living room with the faded beige carpet, the scratches on the door frame where the cat used to claw, the kitchen where I had learned to cook because Marjorie was always too busy. This house was not a warm place, but it was the only anchor we had. If they lost this, they would lose everything. Frank would shatter. Logan, who was 20 then and still living in his childhood bedroom, would be homeless. And Marjorie would lose the one thing she valued more than oxygen, her status. I did not offer to pay because I wanted to save them. I did not do it out of a sudden surge of filial piety. I did it because I did not want to watch my father live in a motel. I did it because, despite everything, I needed the ground to stop shaking. I will fix it, I said. The words tasted like ash. Marjorie let out a sob and rushed to hug me. I knew it, she cried into my shoulder. I knew you would know what to do. You are the rock. Sienna. You are the rock. I pushed her away gently. I need access to the account. I need to talk to the bank, and I'm going to pay the arrears. But I am taking over the mortgage payments from now on. You can't handle this. Of course, she said, wiping her eyes. Whatever you say. That was how it started. I drained my savings. I sold the car I had just bought. I moved into a cheaper apartment that had bars on the windows. Every month, $3,200 left my account and went into the black hole of 4209 Maple Ridge Drive. For 5 years, I kept the wolves at the door, but the real knife in the ribs didn't come from the bank. It came 6 months later, at Thanksgiving. The house was full of relatives. Aunt Corinne was there, smoking on the back porch. My cousins were loud in the living room. We were all seated around the table, the turkey carved, the wine flowing. Marjorie stood up to make a toast. She looked radiant. She had bought a new dress for the occasion. Something I knew she put on a credit card I hadn't seen yet. I just want to say how grateful I am, Marjorie said, raising her glass. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. This year has been so hard. The business has been a challenge, but we made it through. We kept this home, and I want you all to know that it is because of grit. It is because when things get tough, this family does not quit. We tightened our belts, we made sacrifices, and we saved our home. Everyone clapped. Here, here, my uncle shouted. Good job, Margie. I sat there, frozen. My hand gripped the stem of my wineglass so hard I thought it might snap. I waited for her to look at me. I waited for her to say, and thank you to Sienna, who is eating instant noodles so we can eat turkey. She didn't. She looked right past me, her gaze landing on Logan, who was busy texting under the table. To family, she said. To family, everyone echoed. I drank my wine in one swallow. The bitterness sat on my tongue, heavy and sour, that night, after everyone left. I went to the desk in the hallway. I found the folder where Marjorie kept the house papers. I took out the bank statements I had mailed to the house because I hadn't changed the address yet. I took the receipt for the wire transfer I had sent that week. I went to my old bedroom, gathered every scrap of paper that proved I existed in that financial equation, and I put them in my bag. What are you doing? Marjorie asked from the doorway. She was holding a dish towel, looking annoyed that I was still there. Just cleaning up some old papers, I said. I knew then. I knew with a cold, absolute certainty that if I did not keep the evidence, she would erase me. She would rewrite the history of this house until I was nothing but a footnote, a background character who maybe chipped in for groceries once or twice. She needed to be the hero of her own story, and heroes don't need their daughters to bail them out. I walked to the front door, the heavy bag of documents digging into my shoulder. Marjorie followed me. She lowered her voice, looking around to make sure Frank wasn't listening. Sienna, she said. Her tone was conspiratorial, the way one speaks to an accomplice, about the mortgage payments. Yes. Don't go telling your aunts and cousins about the money arrangement, she said. She reached out and patted my arm. her nails clicking against my coat. You know how people talk. They wouldn't understand. They would just think it is sad that your father and I needed help. People will laugh at us, and we don't want that, do we? I looked at her. I looked at the woman who had just taken a bow for my sacrifice. No, Mom, I said. We don't want people to laugh. I walked out into the cold night air. I started my rusting Honda and drove away from the house I was paying for. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just drove, listening to the engine rattle, and made a promise to myself. I would keep the receipts. I would keep every single one, because a day was coming when the laughter would stop, and the math would have to be done. And when that day came, I would make sure everyone knew exactly who had paid the bill. The glow of my laptop screen was the only light in my apartment. It was a cold, clinical blue that made my living room feel less like a home and more like an operating theater. I was not sleeping tonight. I was dissecting the corpse of my family's financial integrity. My phone was propped up against a coffee mug. Speakerphone on. Aunt Corinne was on the other end, her voice raspy and precise, guiding me through the labyrinth of the Dane County Public Records database. This was not the user-friendly interface they showed to the public. This was the raw data stream, the place where the county kept its skeletons. Go to the grantor index, Corinne said. Search by last name, filter for the last 90 days. If they are rushing this for the party, the paperwork is already in the pipeline. I typed Hartman. Marjorie into the search field. My fingers felt heavy. Okay, I said. I am looking at a list. Most of it is old stuff. The original mortgage from 20 years ago. The modification from when I took over payments, though my name isn't on the title. Just the trust addendum. Look for recent activity, Corinne commanded. Look for a document code that starts with QCD. Quitclaim deed. The fastest, dirtiest way to transfer property. It offered no warranties, no protections. It was just one person saying to another, whatever I own, I give to you. I don't see a recorded quitclaim, I said, scrolling down. But wait, I paused. The system showed a pending instrument flag. It was a placeholder, a digital marker indicating that a document number had been reserved. There is a reservation, I told her. Instrument number 899050. It was pulled this morning. The description field is blank, but the transaction type is labeled intra-family transfer, exempt from transfer fee. That is it, Corinne said, the smoke exhaling audibly on her end. That is the deed for Logan. They reserve the spot so they can file it immediately after the notary stamps it, probably trying to get it on record before Monday morning. Why the rush? I asked. If it is a gift, why does it matter if it is recorded Monday or next month? Because you don't rush a gift, Sienna. You rush a getaway. Corinne paused. I have seen this before. They get the parents to sign a standard deed, thinking they are just giving the house to the kid. But the document has an attachment, a Schedule A legal description. It is very easy to slip a second page in there, or an encumbrance agreement. You think they are tricking Logan? I think Logan is an idiot who signs whatever is put in front of him, Corinne said bluntly. But I don't think they are tricking him into taking a free house. I think they are tricking him into taking a liability. I frowned, clicking on the history of the parcel again. I wanted to see the chain of title. I wanted to see the clean line where I had paid off the $680,000. I wanted to see the satisfaction of mortgage that should have been the tombstone of my debt. It wasn't there. Instead, I found something else. It was buried 3 lines down, dated 6 months ago. I had missed it in my initial panic because the document type was abbreviated. MOD Revolve Cred. Corinne, I said, my voice dropping. What is a MOD Revolve Cred? Modification of revolving credit, she answered instantly. Why? Because there is one here, dated November 15th, 6 months ago. Who is the lender? Northbridge Community Bank. I read. Principal amount $150,000. The room seemed to tilt. That is a HELOC, Corinne said, her voice turning grim. A home equity line of credit. Sienna. Did you authorize that? No, I whispered. I was paying the primary mortgage. I sent the wire for the payoff 2 weeks ago. I thought I was clearing the title. You were clearing the first position, Corinne said. You paid off the big loan. But while you were busy being the good daughter and paying down the principal, Marjorie went behind your back and opened a line of credit against the equity you were building. I sat back, feeling the breath leave my lungs. It was a perfect parasitic move. As I paid the debt down, the value of the house went up. The gap between what was owed and what the house was worth, the equity grew. That equity was supposed to be my safety net. It was supposed to be the inheritance I had secured. But Marjorie had seen that equity as an open checkbook. She had borrowed $150,000 against the house I was paying for. She cashed me out, I said. She cashed out my payments. And now she is gifting the house to Logan, Corinne said, connecting the dots. Sienna, if she transfers the title to Logan, that HELOC goes with it, unless the bank calls the loan due upon transfer. But if she doesn't tell the bank, she is dumping the debt on him, I realized. Or she is trying to hide the asset before the bank realizes she is insolvent. You need to confirm that HELOC is active, Corinne said. Call the bank, now. I hung up with Corinne and stared at the phone. It was late, but Northbridge Community Bank had a 24-hour automated line for lost cards and fraud. I wasn't reporting a lost card, but I was certainly reporting a theft of my life. I dialed the number. The robotic voice greeted me. Please enter your account number. I didn't have one. I had the loan number from the public record. I punched it in. I'm sorry. We cannot locate that account. I pressed 0. I pressed it again. Finally, a tired-sounding human came on the line. Northbridge Security. This is David. How can I help you? My name is Sienna Garcia, I said, keeping my voice steady. I am calling about a property at 4209 Maple Ridge Drive. There is a home equity line of credit recorded against this address, and I need to verify the outstanding balance. Are you the account holder? David asked. I am the person who paid off the primary mortgage on this property. I said, my name is on the trust agreement associated with the deed. One moment. I heard typing. I see the property, ma'am. The account holders listed are Marjorie Hartman and Frank Hartman. Is my name on the file? I asked, though I already knew the answer. No, ma'am. I don't see a Sienna Garcia. Okay, can you tell me if the line of credit has been drawn upon? I cannot disclose account details to a non-authorized third party, David recited. You would need Mrs. Hartman to add you as an authorized user. She won't do that, I said. David, listen, that house is being transferred this weekend. If there is a lien on it, the new owner needs to know. Then the current owner should disclose that, David said, bored. Is there anything else? No, I said. Nothing else? I ended the call. The silence returned, heavier than before. I had paid $680,000. I had saved the house, and in the eyes of the bank, I was a stranger. I was a ghost. Marjorie had used my money to buy herself a credit line, and now she was using that credit line to play wealthy. My phone pinged, a notification from Instagram. I shouldn't have looked. I knew I shouldn't have looked, but the masochism of the moment took over. It was Logan. He had posted a story. It was a boomerang video of him holding a bottle of champagne in the kitchen, my kitchen. The one I had paid to keep the lights on in. He was grinning, doing a little dance. Marjorie was in the background, clapping. The caption read, Big things coming, new homeowner, energy blessed, legacy graduation gift. I tapped on the comments. Congrats. And you deserve it, wrote a cousin who hadn't spoken to me in 3 years. Wow. Your parents are the best, wrote one of his frat brothers. So happy for you. Logan. Keep grinding. And then, a comment from my Aunt Linda, Marjorie's sister-in-law. It is great to see the house go to someone who will appreciate family values. Unlike some people who just care about money, she meant me. They had spun the narrative so effectively that my financial discipline was being painted as greed, and Logan's freeloading was being painted as family values. I felt a heat rising in my chest, a physical sensation of burning. They were celebrating a theft. They were drinking champagne on the deck of a sinking ship, and they had locked me in the brig. I needed to see the water damage. I needed to see exactly how big the hole in the hull was. Public records gave me the mortgage data, but they didn't give me the full picture of judgments and liens. For that, I needed a professional. I grabbed my coat. 30 minutes later, I was sitting in a booth at the Night Owl, a 24-hour diner on the edge of the university campus. Across from me sat Jules Marlowe. Jules was my best friend since sophomore year of college. She worked as a senior title officer for a large escrow company. She was sharp, cynical, and the only person who knew exactly how much coffee I drank to survive tax season. She had her laptop open on the sticky table, the blue light reflecting in her glasses. "You look like hell." "Sienna," Jules said, not looking up from her screen. "My mother is gifting the house to Logan," I said, and she took out a HELOC for $150,000 behind my back. Jules stopped typing. She looked at me, her eyes wide. "She what?" "She leveraged the equity I paid for. Now she is transferring the title. I need to know if there is anything else attached to that property. If she is moving this fast, she is running from something." Jules nodded, her face setting into a professional mask. "Okay, give me the address again." 4209 Maple Ridge Drive, Jules typed. She had access to the paid databases, the ones that aggregated court records, tax liens, and federal judgments in seconds. She hit enter and took a sip of her black coffee. "Okay, pulling the title commitment prelim," she muttered. "Standard mortgage, we see the HELOC weight." She frowned. She leaned closer to the screen. "What?" I asked. "What is it?" "Sienna," Jules said slowly. "You know how your mom's restaurant has been struggling. She says it is fine. She says she is rebranding." "Right," Jules said. "Well, rebranding doesn't stop lawsuits. I am seeing a lis pendens filed against the restaurant's commercial property, but that is a lease, so it doesn't matter much. But here, this is on the personal residence." She turned the laptop toward me. "There is an involuntary lien recorded," Jules said, pointing to a line of text in red. "It is not a bank loan, it is a judgment lien." "From who?" "Cisco Food Services," Jules read. "Unpaid vendor invoices, plus legal fees, plus interest." I stared at the number. $42,000. "It was recorded 3 weeks ago," Jules explained. "Your mom must have signed a personal guarantee for the restaurant's supply contract. When the business didn't pay, they came after her assets. They came after the house. So the house isn't just mortgaged," I said, my voice hollow. "It is encumbered by a judgment." "Exactly," Jules said. "And here is the kicker. If she transfers the title to Logan, that lien follows the property. Cisco doesn't care who lives there. They can force a sale to collect their $42,000. If Logan takes the title, he takes the lawsuit." "Does she know that—" "Maybe," Jules shrugged. "Or maybe she thinks if she changes the name on the deed, the creditors will get confused and go away. It is a classic amateur move. If I don't own it, you can't take it. But the lien is already sticky. It is attached like a barnacle." I looked at the screen. The HELOC for $150,000, the lien for $42,000, the original mortgage I had spent 5 years paying off. The house wasn't a gift. It was a grenade. Marjorie wasn't giving Logan a fresh start. She was handing him a pinless grenade and walking away before it exploded. She was going to stand at that party, smile, accept the applause for her generosity, and leave her son to deal with the bank and the food suppliers when they came to seize the front door. And she had banned me from the party because I was the only one who could read the safety manual. "This is fraud," I said. "This is conveyance to defraud creditors." "It sure looks like it," Jules said softly. "Sienna, if this transfer goes through and the creditors find out, they will sue everyone, Marjorie, Logan, and if your name is anywhere on the trust documents, they might even try to depose you to see if you were complicit." "I am not complicit," I said. "I am the victim." "Then you need to stop the transfer," Jules said. "You can't just let it happen. You need to blow it up before the ink dries." I looked at the judgment lien again. $42,000 worth of frozen hamburger patties and fryer oil. Hanging over the roof, I had sacrificed my 20s to save. "Jules," I said, "print it. Print everything." "What are you going to do?" she asked, hitting the Command P keys. I watched the pages slide out of the portable printer she kept in her bag. The sound was rhythmic, like a gavel hitting a block. "I am going to prepare a gift of my own," I said. "Mom wants to play pretend fine, but I am bringing the reviews." Jules handed me the stack of warm paper. "Be careful, Sienna. When you corner a narcissist, they don't cry. They bite." "Let her bite," I said, folding the papers and sliding them into my bag next to the memorandum of trust. "I have the teeth now." The neon sign above Marjorie's diner flickered with a dying buzz. The E in diner burned out so it just read DNR. It was fitting. Inside, the lunch rush was a myth. At 1 in the afternoon, there were exactly 2 customers nursing cold coffees in the corner booth, and my mother was behind the counter, wiping down a surface that was already clean. I walked in. The bell above the door chimed, a cheerful sound that felt violently out of place. Marjorie looked up. For a second, her face tightened, a micro-expression of annoyance, before it smoothed into the practiced mask of the long-suffering mother. "Sienna," she said, not moving from her spot, "I told you, I am busy preparing for the party. I don't have time for a scene." I sat on a stool 3 feet away from her. I didn't take off my coat. "I am not here to make a scene, Mom. I am here to understand." "Understand what?" She scrubbed a spot on the laminate counter harder than necessary. "That your brother is finally getting his life together. That we want to celebrate him. God, you are so sensitive lately. You act like everything is a personal attack." "You are giving him the house," I said. My voice was low, level. "The house that I paid for," Marjorie laughed. It was a dry, dismissive sound. "Oh, stop it. You are so dramatic. The house I paid for. You sound like a banker. We are a family. Sienna, we all chip in. That is what families do. I cooked your meals for 18 years. Did I send you a bill?" "This isn't about spaghetti. Mom, it is about $680,000. Money, money, money," she muttered, shaking her head as if disappointed in my spiritual shallowness. "That is all you care about. It makes you ugly. Sienna, really, it makes you look hard." My father, Frank, emerged from the kitchen carrying a tray of clean glasses. He froze when he saw me. He looked smaller than I remembered. His shoulders curved inward as if trying to collapse into himself. "Hi, Sienna," he said softly. "Frank, tell her," Marjorie commanded, gesturing at me with a wet rag. "Tell her she is being ridiculous." Dad set the glasses down. He didn't look at me. He looked at the napkin dispenser. "Now, Sienna," he began, his voice maintaining that pleading, pacific tone he had perfected over 30 years of marriage. "Your mother is just trying to do something nice for Logan. He has had a hard time finding his footing. You know that. You are successful. You have your fancy job at the risk firm. You don't need the help. Logan does." "It is not about need, Dad," I said. "It is about the agreement, the trust." "The trust," Marjorie scoffed. "A piece of paper. We signed that when we were desperate because you insisted on it. You held it over our heads. Sign this or I won't help. That is not love, Sienna. That is leverage. And now that we are back on our feet, you are still trying to control us." I watched her face. She believed it. She actually believed that my paying off their foreclosure was an act of aggression, not salvation. In her mind, the villain wasn't the bank, and it wasn't her spending habits. It was me, for making her feel indebted. "So you are back on your feet?" I asked. "Yes," she said defiantly. "The restaurant is turning a corner." I thought of the $42,000 judgment lien from Cisco Food Services that Jules had found last night. I thought of the lawsuits. I thought of the empty tables behind me. "That is great news," I said. "So the house is clear." "Of course it is clear," she snapped. "Because of me. Because I managed the household. Because I kept things running while you were off playing corporate executive. The door chime rang again. Logan walked in. He looked fresh. He was wearing a new leather jacket that probably cost more than my first car. He had that easy, loping walk of a man who has never had to run for a bus. When he saw me, he didn't look guilty. He looked magnanimous. "Hey, sis," he said, sliding onto the stool next to me. He smelled of expensive cologne and vanilla vape smoke. "Mom said you were freaking out." "I am not freaking out. Logan, I am discussing the transfer of title." "Look," Logan said, putting a hand on my shoulder. I stiffened, but I didn't pull away. I wanted to see how far he would go. "I know it feels weird, but think about it. You have your own place. You are independent. I need a base. I'm going to use the equity to start a business. An investment firm. Crypto. Mostly." I almost laughed. It would have been a hysterical, terrifying laugh. He was going to use the equity I built. The equity Marjorie had already stripped with the secret HELOC to buy into a crypto scheme. "You are going to use the equity," I repeated. "Yeah," Logan beamed. "Mom and Dad said the house is sitting on a gold mine. Once the title is in my name, I can leverage it, make some real moves." Marjorie was nodding, looking at him with adoration. "He has such a mind for business. Sienna, just like his grandfather." I looked from Logan to Marjorie. They were feeding off each other's delusions. It was a closed loop of fantasy. Logan thought there was money to borrow. Marjorie knew she had already borrowed it, but she needed Logan to take the house so the debt would become his problem, or perhaps she truly believed the well was bottomless. "Logan," I said, "do you know how much the property taxes are?" "Mom handles that," he said, waving a hand. "Do you know when the insurance premium is due?" "Details," he said, his smile faltering slightly. "Why do you always have to be such a downer? This is why Mom didn't want you at the party. You suck the air out of the room." "I said she could come," Marjorie interjected, playing the benevolent queen. "If she behaves, if she doesn't make it about herself." "Right," Logan said. "Just come, Sienna. Have a drink. Celebrate me for once. Don't make Mom sad." "I don't want to make anyone sad," I said. "I just want to be clear. Mom, you are saying the house is yours to give." "It is my name on the deed," Marjorie said. "My name and your father's, and my contribution." "You helped," she said, shrugging. "You paid rent. You lived there for years as an adult. Sienna, we didn't charge you, so you paid some bills later. It washes out. It washes out. 5 years, $680,000, my youth, my credit score, all washed out because I slept in my childhood bedroom for a few years after college." I looked at Frank. "Dad, is that how you see it? I just paid rent." Frank wiped a glass that was already dry. He looked at Marjorie, then at Logan, then at his shoes. "It is complicated, Sienna. Families are complicated. Let's just have a nice weekend." He wouldn't look me in the eye. That was my answer. I turned back to Marjorie. The anger I had felt earlier was gone. It had been replaced by a cold, clinical curiosity. I needed to know the depth of the rot. I needed to know if she was lying to me, or if she was lying to herself. "Okay," I said. "If I was just helping, and you were managing the household, I have one question." "What?" Marjorie snapped, checking her watch. "What day did the mortgage payoff clear?" Marjorie froze. Her hand stopped midway to the napkin holder. She blinked. "What?" "The payoff," I said. "You said you managed it. You said you kept the house. So, what was the date the final payment cleared the bank? Was it a Tuesday? A Friday? Was it last week? Last month?" She faltered. Her eyes darted to the side. "It was recently, last month, the 15th. I stared at her. "The 15th. "Yes," she said, regaining her confidence. "Around then, the final wire transfer had cleared on the 3rd of this month. It was a Thursday. She didn't know. She didn't know because she hadn't looked at a mortgage statement in 5 years. She hadn't opened the envelopes. She hadn't logged into the portal. She had simply spent the money I gave her to keep the lights on, and assumed the mortgage was handling itself because the foreclosure notices had stopped coming. And the amount I pressed, what was the final payoff figure? Oh, for God's sake, Sienna. Marjorie slammed the rag down. I don't memorize every penny. I have a business to run. I have a graduation party to plan. I have a notary coming at 9 in the morning on Saturday to sign the papers for your brother, and I do not have time for your interrogation. The room went silent. Even the two customers in the corner looked up. Marjorie's eyes widened. She realized what she had done. Saturday, I said softly, at 9 in the morning. She pressed her lips together, her face flushing red. Yes, Saturday, so we can be done with this. So Logan can have his start. I see, I said. And the notary is coming to the house. Yes, she hissed. So don't you dare show up before noon. I don't want your car in the driveway. I don't want your face in the window. Don't worry, I said, sliding off the stool. I won't be in the window. I buttoned my coat. I looked at Logan, who was checking his phone, already bored with the conversation. I looked at Frank, who was staring at the exit sign like he wished he could walk through it and keep walking forever. And I looked at Marjorie. You know, I said, you are right. Mom, I have been looking at this like a transaction. I should have been looking at it like a performance. I don't know what you are talking about, she said, turning her back to me to fiddle with the coffee machine. I think you do, I said. You want to be the generous mother. You want to be the hero. Go ahead, be the hero. But just remember, heroes have to save everyone, even themselves. I walked toward the door. My heels clicked on the worn linoleum, a sharp, rhythmic sound that cut through the diner's silence. Sienna, Marjorie called out, just as I reached the handle. I paused, my hand on the brass bar. You listen to me, she said, and her voice wasn't airy anymore. It was low and hard, the voice she used when she was cornered. You are jealous. That is all this is. You can't stand that Logan is happy. But if you try to ruin this party, if you try to embarrass us in front of the family, you will be the one who ends up alone. You will be the one who looks crazy. Do you hear me? You will just be the bitter spinster sister who couldn't let it go. I didn't turn around. I didn't want her to see the smile that was forming on my face. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a risk analyst who had just identified the fatal flaw in the system. I hear you, Mom, I said, loud and clear. I pushed the door open and stepped out into the gray afternoon. The air smelled of rain and exhaust. I took a deep breath. Saturday, 9 in the morning. She had given me the time. She had given me the location. And by admitting she didn't know the payoff date, she had confirmed she had no idea what was actually in the legal documents she was about to sign. I pulled out my phone and texted Dana Klein, the attorney I was meeting in an hour. I have the timeline. The closing is Saturday at 09:00. We need to file the lis pendens first thing tomorrow morning. I looked back at the diner through the glass window. Marjorie was leaning over the counter, laughing at something Logan was showing her on his phone. Frank was still polishing the same glass. They were a perfect, happy family. They were actors on a stage, waiting for the curtain to rise. They had no idea I was about to burn the theater down. Dana Klein's law office was not located in one of the gleaming glass towers that pierced the Madison skyline. It was tucked into the second floor of a converted brick walk-up on Williamson Street, sandwiched between a fair trade coffee shop and a yoga studio. There was no receptionist. There was no mahogany conference table. There was just a room lined floor to ceiling with banker's boxes, the air smelling of old paper and peppermint tea. Dana herself was a woman of sharp angles and efficient movements. She wore a gray blazer over a t-shirt, and her hair was pulled back in a clip that looked like it was struggling to hold the chaos together. She did not offer me water. She pointed to the chair across from her desk, which was covered in files. I have the summary you sent, Dana said, tapping a tablet screen. And I ran the property search again this morning to make sure nothing changed overnight. We are clear so far. No deed has been recorded. Yet, I sat down, placing my heavy bag of documents on the floor. She said the notary is coming Saturday, 9 in the morning. That gives us less than 72 hours, Dana said. She looked at the calendar on her wall. Today is Wednesday. If we miss the filing window on Friday afternoon, and they sign on Saturday, they can technically hand over possession even if they don't record until Monday. Possession is 9/10 of the law. As the saying goes, we do not want Logan moving his crypto mining rig into the master bedroom before we strike. What is the move? I asked. How do we stop a gift? Dana reached for the folder I had brought in earlier. She pulled out the Memorandum of Trust. This was the document I had forced my parents to sign 5 years ago. At the time, they had barely glanced at it, their hands shaking as they signed anything that would stop the foreclosure. This, Dana said, thumping the paper, this is not just a safety net, Sienna, it is a leash. She flipped to page 4, paragraph 7. Read this, she commanded. I leaned in. In the event of default cure by a beneficiary, said beneficiary shall assume primary equitable interest in the trust corpus until such time as the curing amount is reimbursed in full. No transfer, encumbrance, or alienation of the property may occur without the express written consent of the curing beneficiary. I read it twice. I forgot this clause was so specific, I admitted. Standard protection for a private lender, Dana said. Which is what you are. You aren't just a daughter helping out. Legally, you are a secured creditor. Your mother signed a document stating she cannot sell, gift, or refinance this house without your permission until she pays you back the $680,000. She thinks she can just ignore it, I said. She thinks because it is family, contracts don't count. Contracts always count, Dana said grimly, especially when they are notarized. Marjorie can pretend this doesn't exist, but the county recorder won't. Here's the strategy. We are going to file a lis pendens. A lis pendens, I repeated. Suit pending. Exactly. It is a formal notice recorded against the property title. It tells the world, including title companies, banks, and potential buyers, that this property is the subject of an active lawsuit. It clouds the title. If Marjorie tries to transfer the deed to Logan while a lis pendens is active, the transfer is subject to the outcome of the lawsuit. No title insurance company will touch it. It effectively freezes the asset. So we have to sue her. We file a complaint for a declaratory judgment and a constructive trust, Dana explained, her fingers flying across her keyboard as she drafted the template. We are asking the court to declare that you are the equitable owner of the house because you paid for it, and that Marjorie is holding the title in trust for you. The lis pendens is just the warning shot. She paused and looked at me over the rim of her glasses. But we have a complication. The HELOC, I said. The HELOC, Dana agreed. I saw the report regarding the $150,000 credit line and the judgment lien from the food vendor. This changes the texture of the case. Sienna, if we stop the transfer, we are trapping Marjorie in a house she has over-leveraged. But if we don't stop the transfer, and she gives the house to Logan, she is committing civil fraud. How? Because of the debts, Dana said. If she gives away her primary asset for $0 while she owes money to creditors like Cisco and the bank, that is called a fraudulent conveyance. She is shedding assets to make herself judgment-proof. If we file this suit, we are not just fighting over a graduation gift, we are lighting a flare that every other creditor is going to see. I felt a cold knot in my stomach. If I file this, the bank finds out. Cisco finds out. They will find out eventually anyway, Dana said. But if you file, you put yourself at the front of the line. You assert your priority. If you let Logan take the title, and then the bank forecloses on the HELOC because Marjorie stops paying, which she will. Because she is broke, you lose everything. Your $680,000 evaporates. She leaned forward. So, the question is not whether we file. The question is, are you ready to be the one who rings the bell? I thought about the diner. I thought of Marjorie laughing at me, calling me the bitter spinster sister. I thought of Logan's smug face as he talked about leveraging the equity for crypto. They were gambling with my life's work. Ring it, I said. Good, Dana said. I need the evidence. I need to attach exhibits to the complaint to show the judge we have a prima facie case. Give me the timeline. I opened the heavy plastic bin. I laid it out on her desk, stack by stack. Here are the wire transfers, I said, placing a 3-inch stack of paper down. Monthly payments for 60 months, totaling $192,000 in interest and principal payments. Dana nodded, grabbing the stack. Check. Here is the lump sum payoff confirmation from 2 weeks ago, I said, placing the single, heavy sheet on top. $488,000. Check. Here is the email correspondence from 3 years ago where she acknowledged I was paying the mortgage because she couldn't, I said. And here is the original foreclosure notice I cured. Dana whistled low. You are organized. I usually have clients who bring me receipts in a shoebox. I am a risk analyst, I said. I don't leave trails. I build maps. This is a map to a massacre, Dana muttered. She began stapling the exhibits. Okay, we are going to draft the complaint now. I will file it electronically with the circuit court. Once we have the case number, I will file the lis pendens with the Register of Deeds. I will mark it as emergency filing to ensure it gets indexed immediately. Will she know? I asked. Will she get a notification? Not immediately, Dana said. The Register of Deeds doesn't call the homeowner, but the moment that notary tries to verify the title on Saturday morning, or if the title company runs a final check, it will pop up red on their screen, and then we serve her. Serve her. We have to serve the lawsuit, Dana said. I will hire a process server. We can time it. When do you want her to receive the physical papers? I looked at the clock. It was Wednesday afternoon. Do it Friday, I said. Friday afternoon. I want the lis pendens recorded first. I want the trap to be shut before she knows she is in it. Dana typed furiously for 20 minutes. The silence in the room was broken only by the aggressive clacking of her mechanical keyboard and the hum of the heater. I watched the dust motes dance in the light of the window, thinking about how strange it was that the destruction of a family narrative could be reduced to 12-point Times New Roman font. Finally, the printer whirred to life. Dana handed me the document. Verified complaint for declaratory judgment, quiet title, and injunctive relief. Plaintiff Sienna Garcia. Defendants Marjorie Hartman, Frank Hartman. Seeing my name against theirs on legal paper made my breath hitch. It was official. It was a war. Sign here, Dana said, sliding a blue pen across the desk. And here, and initial the verification page. I signed. My signature was steady. It didn't look like the signature of a daughter. It looked like the signature of a creditor. Okay, Dana said, gathering the papers. I am submitting this to the e-filing system now. It is 4:15. We will get a case number by 5. I will have the lis pendens at the recorder's office by opening bell tomorrow morning. She looked at me, her expression softening just a fraction. Sienna, once this is in the system, it is public record. Anyone with an internet connection can find it. Your cousins, your neighbors, the people coming to that party. Good, I said. I am tired of secrets. From now on, Dana said, no one can act without the audience of the public record. If Marjorie wants to lie, she will have to lie under oath. I stood up. I felt lighter, as if the heavy bin of papers I had been carrying for 5 years had finally been set down. Thank you, Dana. Don't thank me yet, she said. Wait until the other shoe drops, and with a HELOC involved, that shoe is going to be heavy. I left her office and walked out into the cool Wisconsin evening. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the street. I drove home in silence. I didn't listen to the radio. I didn't call anyone. I went to my apartment, made a simple dinner, and sat on my couch, waiting. Thursday passed in a blur of work. I sat in my glass box at Grapevine, building risk models for a shipping company, but my mind was entirely on the Dane County Courthouse server. At 4:30 on Thursday afternoon, my phone pinged with an email from Dana. Subject recording confirmation. Attached is the file-stamped copy of the lis pendens, It was recorded at 10:02 a.m. this morning. Document number 899105. The trap is set. I opened the attachment. There it was. A stamp in the top right corner. Recorded, Dane County Register of Deeds. It was done. The house was now legally radioactive. Marjorie could sign 1,000 deeds to Logan on Saturday, and none of them would be worth the paper they were printed on. I felt a surge of adrenaline, followed by a wave of exhaustion. I closed my eyes, leaning my head back against the sofa cushions. Then, my phone buzzed in my hand. It wasn't an email. It was a text message. I looked at the screen. The name Logan flashed in white letters. My heart hammered against my ribs. Had they found out already? Did they have a Google alert set up for their own names? Or had the bank called them? I opened the message. Logan. What are you doing? I stared at the 3 words. They were accusatory, panicked. I didn't reply. I just watched the 3 dots appear, then disappear, then appear again as he typed a follow-up. Logan, Mom is freaking out. The bank called. They said there is a freeze on the line of credit. What did you tell them? I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. They didn't know about the lawsuit yet. They knew about the call I made to Northbridge. They knew the money spigot had been turned off. The lis pendens was the nuclear option. But my inquiry on Tuesday night had already tripped the silent alarms at the bank. I set the phone down on the coffee table. I didn't type back. I wasn't going to explain. I wasn't going to justify. I was the risk analyst. And for the first time in the history of the Hartman family, I wasn't mitigating the risk. I was the risk. Friday arrived not with sunlight, but with the relentless vibration of my cell phone against the nightstand. The first domino had fallen the moment the bank froze the line of credit, and now the chain reaction was tearing through the phone lines of Madison, Wisconsin. I didn't answer. I just watched the screen light up, darken, and light up again. Incoming call, Mom. Incoming call, Mom. Incoming call, Mom. There were 14 missed calls by 7 in the morning. I finally listened to the voicemails while drinking black coffee in my kitchen, staring at the gray sky over the lake. The progression of her tone was a masterclass in manipulation. Message 1, 6:15 in the morning. Sienna, pick up. The bank is acting strange. They said there is a hold on the account. Did you say something to them? Call me back so we can fix this misunderstanding. Her voice was tight, anxious, but still clinging to the facade of control. Message 5, 6:45 in the morning. I don't know what game you are playing, but this isn't funny. You are messing with your brother's future. We have vendors to pay for the party. Pick up the phone. Message 14, 7:10 in the morning. You are a selfish, vindictive little girl. You are trying to destroy this family because you are jealous. If you don't call the bank and tell them you made a mistake, don't bother calling yourself a Garcia ever again. You are dead to us. I deleted the messages. The words didn't sting the way they used to. Once, that level of vitriol would have sent me spiraling into a panic attack, desperate to fix whatever I had broken. Now, it just felt like data. It confirmed that my tactical strike had hit the target. The HELOC was frozen. Marjorie was out of liquidity. But Marjorie wasn't fighting alone. She had conscripted the infantry. My text messages were a barrage of unsolicited advice from relatives who had no idea what a title search was, but had very strong opinions on filial piety. Aunt Brenda. Your mom is crying. She says you blocked their credit cards. How could you do that to your parents? They raised you, Cousin Mike. Hey, I heard there is drama. Look, just let Logan have his day. Okay, don't be that person. Uncle Sal family settles things at the dinner table. Sienna, not with banks. Call your father. They were operating on a script Marjorie had written for them, in her version of the story. I was the successful, cold-hearted daughter using her financial literacy to bully her struggling parents. I was the oppressor. She was the victim. I didn't reply to any of them. I put the phone on silent and opened my laptop. I had work to do. At 10 o'clock, an encrypted email arrived from Jules. The subject line was just a red exclamation point. Attachment Cisco Judgment Detail, PDF. I opened the file. It was a breakdown of the lien filed against my parents' house. I had known about the amount $42,000, but I hadn't seen the correspondence log attached to the court filing until now. Jules had pulled the exhibits from the civil suit. I read the emails between Marjorie and the collections department at Cisco, date February 12th, from Marjorie Hartman, to collections, subject payment plan. Please do not file the lien. I am in the process of restructuring our family assets. We are transferring a property within the family to unlock equity. Once the transfer is complete, I will have a lump sum to settle the account. The house is our guarantee. I stared at the screen. The air in my apartment felt suddenly thin. She hadn't just neglected the debt. She had actively traded on the house. She had used the promise of unlocking equity, which was a polite way of saying draining the value, to stall the creditors. She wasn't gifting the house to Logan to give him a foundation. She was moving the asset to a new owner so she could borrow against it again. Or perhaps so Logan could take out a fresh loan that she couldn't qualify for with her wrecked credit score. The house was a hostage, and Logan was the bagman, which brought me to the next question: why would Logan agree to this? He was lazy, yes, and entitled, but taking on a house loaded with hidden debt was a level of stupidity that even he usually avoided, unless he didn't know about the debt, or unless he was desperate for the appearance of success. I needed to check his credentials. Marjorie had said the party was for his graduation, a degree in business administration from an online program affiliated with a university in Arizona. She had been bragging about it for months. Logan is finally finishing. He is going to be an investment banker. I navigated to the National Student Clearinghouse. As a background checker for Gray Pine, I had an account. It was a simple search. Subject: Logan Hartman. DOB March 14, 1999. School, Arizona. Global campus. Fictional. I hit enter. The wheel spun for 3 seconds. Status withdrawn. Last date of attendance, October 14, 2022. I blinked. That was 18 months ago. He hadn't graduated. He hadn't even been enrolled for a year and a half. I sat back, the leather of my chair creaking. The graduation party was a lie. The degree was a lie. So why the charade? Why spend money on a party they couldn't afford to celebrate a diploma that didn't exist? Then it clicked. I recalled the conversation at the diner. Logan talking about investment firms and crypto. He wasn't looking for a job. He was looking for investors. He was trying to build a persona. The young, successful business graduate with his own property. The house wasn't a home to him. It was a prop. He needed the deed in his name to show potential clients or partners that he had collateral, that he was a man of substance. Marjorie needed him to have the deed so she could use his clean credit to refinance the house and pay off her restaurant debts. It was a symbiotic parasitism. They were feeding off the carcass of my $680,000. My phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a relative. It was my father. Dad, I am at the Save-A-Lot on East Washington. Please, just 5 minutes. My father never texted. He hated typing with his thick, callous fingers. If he was texting, he was desperate. And if he was at the grocery store, it meant he had slipped away from Marjorie's surveillance. I grabbed my keys. The parking lot of the Save-A-Lot was a grim expanse of cracked asphalt and gray slush. I spotted my father's truck parked near the cart return. He was sitting in the driver's seat, staring straight ahead. I pulled my Honda up next to him and rolled down the window. He did the same. The cold wind whipped between our vehicles. "Dad," I said. He looked terrible. His face was gray. The lines around his eyes etched deep with exhaustion. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in a week. "She is tearing the house apart," he said, his voice barely audible over the wind. "Looking for the file, the mortgage file. She said you stole it." "I didn't steal it," I said. "I took what I paid for." "Sienna," he said, and his hands gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. "You have to stop this. You have to unfreeze the bank. They are going to bounce the checks for the catering, the tent rental. It is going to be a humiliation." "The humiliation is a lie. Dad, Logan didn't graduate." Frank flinched. He didn't look surprised. He looked defeated. I know. You know. He said he needs a break. He said he is going to finish later, but he needs this boost. To get his business going. His business is a scam, Dad, and Mom is using the house to pay off Cisco. Did you know about the lien? Frank closed his eyes. He nodded slowly. I knew there was trouble. Marjorie said she handled it. She said she had a plan. Her plan is to put the house in Logan's name and load it with more debt, I said brutally. That is the plan. And when Logan can't pay, because he has no income and no degree, the bank takes the house, my house. It is not your house, Sienna, Frank snapped, a rare flash of anger breaking through his passivity. It is our house. We bought it. We raised you in it. You helped. Yes, and we appreciate it. But you don't own us. I own the debt, Dad, I said cold. I own the $680,000 that kept a roof over your head while you sat in front of the TV and let Mom run the finances into the ground. He slumped back against the seat, the anger draining out of him as quickly as it had come. I just signed the papers, he whispered. I just did what she asked. My radar pinged. What papers? Dad. The ones for Saturday, the notary papers. She had me sign them yesterday because she said it would save time on the weekend. She said I wouldn't have to be there for the whole meeting if I signed early. You signed a deed. I don't know, he said, rubbing his face. There were a lot of pages, a deed of gift, and some other forms, bank forms. Bank forms for what? For the transfer, he said, to move the loan. There is no loan to move. Dad, I said, leaning out of my window. The mortgage is paid off, unless you are opening a new one. He looked at me, his eyes confused, watery. She said it was a refinance, to get a better rate for Logan. So he starts with low payments. The word hung in the air between the two cars, heavy and toxic. Refinance. You cannot refinance a property that has no mortgage unless you are taking cash out. They weren't just transferring the house, they were effectively selling it to Logan, financed by a new bank, and stripping out every cent of equity I had built. Marjorie was going to take the cash from the refinance to pay her debts, and Logan would be left with a new mortgage he couldn't pay. Dad, I said, my voice trembling with rage. How much was the refinance for? I don't know, he mumbled. Maybe $400,000. She said it was standard. $400,000. They were going to drain $400,000 out of the house on Saturday morning. Marjorie would take the cash, Logan would take the title and the debt, and I would be left with a piece of paper in a plastic bin. Did the notary stamp it yet? I asked. No, Frank said. The woman comes Saturday. Marjorie has the papers in the safe. Okay, I said. I put my car in reverse. Go home. Dad, buy your milk. Sienna, he called out, panic rising in his voice. What are you going to do? I am going to save you from yourselves, I said. Again. I peeled out of the parking lot, my tires spinning on the slush. I drove straight to the nearest gas station and dialed Dana Klein. Dana, I said when she picked up, we have a problem. It is not just a gift. It is a cash-out refinance. My father signed the application papers yesterday. They are trying to pull $400,000 out of the equity on Saturday morning. Are you sure? Dana asked, her voice sharp. Frank told me. He used the word refinance. He admitted it. Then it is not a transfer of assets, Dana said. It is a theft of equity, a literal theft. If they close that loan, the new bank takes first position on the title. Your claim becomes secondary to the new mortgage. You would have to sue Marjorie for the money, and she will have already spent it. We filed the lis pendens, I said. Will it stop them? It should, Dana said. If the title company for the new lender does their job, they will see the filing from this morning and pull the plug immediately. No bank lends on a property with active litigation. And if they missed it, if they ran the search 2 days ago and didn't check again, then the closing happens, Dana said. And we have a much bigger, much messier war. What do? We make sure they don't miss it, Dana said. Do you know which title company they are using? No, Dad didn't know. Okay, Dana said. Then we go to the source. The list pendants is public, but the process server he hasn't served Marjorie yet. We scheduled it for tomorrow. Move it up, I said. Serve her today. Serve her now. If we serve her now, she has time to react, Dana warned. She might try to find a shady notary who will backdate documents. She can't backdate a recorded lien, I said. Serve her. I want her to know. I want her to look at those papers and realize that the $400,000 she promised Cisco is gone. Okay, Dana said. I will call the server. He can be at Maple Ridge Drive by 6 o'clock. Do it, I said. Sienna, Dana said, pausing. This confirms everything. This isn't just a dysfunctional family dynamic. This is a calculated financial scheme. They are effectively laundering the house to clear bad business debts. I know, I said. It is a risk transfer. They are moving the risk from the restaurant to the house, and from themselves to me. And you just canceled their insurance policy, Dana said. I hung up. I sat in my car, watching the people pump gas, buying cigarettes and energy drinks, living their normal, uncomplicated lives. I looked at the text from Logan that was still unread on my phone. Logan, don't ruin this for me. I typed a reply. My fingers were cold, but steady. Sienna, I am not ruining it. Logan, I am auditing it. I hit send. The dominoes were clicking faster now. The bank freeze, the list pendants, the lie about the degree, the refinance scheme. Marjorie thought she was playing chess. She thought she could sacrifice a pawn to save the queen. She didn't realize that I had already tipped over the board. The silence in my apartment was not empty. It was heavy, pressurized, like the air inside a submarine dive chamber. I had turned off the notifications on my phone. I had logged out of social media. I had severed the digital tendrils that connected me to the growing hysteria of the Hartman family network. Outside my windows, Madison was gray and blustery, the wind whipping the lake into whitecaps. Inside, the only sound was the rhythmic thwack of paper being sorted and the soft hum of my laser printer. I was building a fortress. I had cleared the coffee table. The memorandum of trust sat in the center, the keystone of my defense. Around it, I arranged the evidence in chronological order, creating a physical timeline of my servitude. I didn't just pile them up. I curated them. I treated my own life like a forensic audit. I started with the winter of 2019. The stack was thick with heating bills and the initial 5-figure check to stop the foreclosure. I remembered that winter. I remembered wearing 2 sweaters indoors because Marjorie said we had to keep the thermostat at 62 to save money, even while I was pouring my entire paycheck into the mortgage. Then the spring of 2020, the stack of transfer receipts grew taller. That was the season Logan wanted a new gaming setup, and Marjorie bought it, while I canceled my dental insurance. Summer of 2021, the air conditioning repair, the roof patch, the property taxes, I laid them out. Season by season, year by year, it was a mosaic of sacrifice. When I looked at the table, I didn't just see numbers. I saw the vacation I didn't take. I saw the car I didn't drive. I saw the clothes I didn't buy. Each piece of paper was a receipt for a life unlived. My laptop chimed with a secure message from Dana Klein. Subject: the truth package. I opened the attachment. Dana had been busy. She had compiled what she called the nuclear option. It was a single, 50-page PDF that wove together the trust agreement, the wire transfers, and the acknowledgement emails from Marjorie into a narrative that no judge could ignore. Dana: I have physical copies ready for the process server. I also have a digital version ready to blast to the title company, the new lender, and the notary association if we need to. We are locked and loaded. I typed back, hold the blast. Let them walk into the trap first. I wanted them to commit. I wanted them to sit down at that table on Saturday morning, pen in hand, believing they had won. I wanted the humiliation to be absolute. My private line rang. It was Aunt Corinne. I found the notary, Corinne said without preamble. Her voice was low, conspiratorial. I called in a favor with a friend at the state licensing board. I asked who covers the Maple Ridge district on weekends. And a woman named Beverly, Corinne said. She's independent, mobile service. She has a booking logged for Saturday morning at 9:30. The address is your parents' house. 9:30, I said, glancing at the clock. That is 30 minutes before the party is supposed to start setting up. Exactly, Corinne said. They are cutting it close. They want to sign the papers, get the cash-out refinance approved, and then open the champagne while the ink is still wet. It is reckless. It is desperate, I corrected. Listen to me. Sienna, Corinne said, her tone sharpening. There is a gap risk. If they sign at 9:30 and the notary rushes the package to FedEx, the new lender might fund the loan on Monday morning before they see the list pendants we filed yesterday. It takes a business day for the index to update fully on the bank's side. So they could still get the money. Only if the title officer is lazy, Corinne said. But Jules is right. You need to be there. You need to physically interrupt the chain of custody. If you walk in there with a copy of the recorded list pendants and slap it on the table while the notary is stamping, she has to stop. She cannot notarize a transaction if she has actual knowledge of a title dispute. I will be there, I said. I won't be inside. I will be on the sidewalk. Public property. Good, Corinne said. Stay cold, kid. Don't let them bait you. I hung up. I went back to the papers. I was stapling the tax returns when my phone rang again. I didn't recognize the number. It was a local area code, but not one stored in my contacts. It looked like a generic business line. I picked it up, expecting Dana or perhaps the process server. This is Sienna, I said. There was a pause, a hesitation, then a female voice spoke. It was professional, but strained. Hello, may I speak with Ms. Garcia? This is Sarah, from the verification department at Northbridge Community Bank. I froze. This is she. Hi, Ms. Garcia. I am calling regarding the security freeze on the home equity line of credit, ending in 402. We have a request here to lift the freeze to facilitate a transaction. My eyes narrowed. I didn't request a lift. Oh, the woman said. She sounded flustered. I see. Well, we have a caller on the other line who verified the social security number and the mother's maiden name. She said she is Sienna Garcia and that she lost her phone, so she is calling from a different number. The blood in my veins turned to ice. Sarah, I said, my voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. I am speaking to you on my registered mobile number. I am Sienna Garcia. I did not authorize any lift. Who is on the other line? I can't say, Sarah stammered, but the security questions were answered correctly. Of course they were answered correctly, I said, because the person calling is my mother. There was a stunned silence on the end of the line. Listen to me closely, I said. Do not lift that freeze. If you release 1 cent from that equity line, I will sue your bank for negligence and facilitating identity theft. Do you understand me? Flag that account for fraud. Right now. Yes, ma'am. I am flagging it now. I am terminating the other call. The line went dead. I put the phone down. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, but from a rage so pure it felt like clarity. She had tried to impersonate me. Marjorie knew my social security number. She knew the answers to my security questions. My first pet, the street I grew up on, my father's middle name. Because she was my mother, she had used the intimacy of our relationship as a key to pick the lock of my identity. She wasn't just stealing my money anymore. She was wearing my skin. I dialed Dana immediately. She just tried to override the freeze, I said. She called the bank pretending to be me. What? Dana sounded incredulous. Are you sure? The teller confirmed it. Someone with my personal data was on the other line trying to lift the block. It was her. Dana. She is panicking because the refinance won't go through if the existing line is frozen. That is criminal, Dana said. That is not civil. That is wire fraud. That is identity theft. I don't want to arrest her, I said, rubbing my temples. Not yet, but I want her to know I know. I am drafting a cease and desist, Dana said, the clicking of her keyboard already audible. I am sending it to her email, her text, and I am copying her lawyer if she even has one. I am going to state clearly that any further attempt to use your personal identification information will result in an immediate referral to the district attorney. Do it, I said. And Dana add a line. Tell her that I know about the refinance. Tell her I know about the $400,000. I will, Dana said. I am sending it within the hour. I paced the small length of my living room. The calm was fracturing. The storm was leaking in through the cracks. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. It wasn't the bank. It wasn't Dana. It was Marjorie. She must have received the email. She must have seen the words identity theft and district attorney. The aggression had failed. The impersonation had failed. So now, she was deploying the final weapon in her arsenal. The text was long. It wasn't angry. It was soft. Mom. Sienna. I don't know who is putting these ideas in your head. Lawyers' courts. We are family. I remember the day you were born. It was snowing. Just like today. I held you, and I promised I would always take care of you. I know I haven't been perfect, but everything I do is for this family. For you. For Logan. Please. Baby. Don't let money destroy us. Just come home. We can fix this. I miss my little girl. I read the message. I read it again. I miss my little girl. She didn't miss me. She missed the compliance. She missed the version of me that was small, and quiet, and desperate for her approval. She missed the little girl who would empty her piggy bank to buy her mother a birthday present because she thought love was something you had to purchase. She was trying to bypass the brain and aim straight for the womb. She was using the biology of our connection to overwrite the math of her betrayal. I walked over to the bookshelf in the corner. Tucked away on the bottom shelf, behind a row of textbooks on actuarial science, was a small framed photo. It was from a summer barbecue, 10 years ago, before the debts piled up, before the foreclosure, before I became the banker. Marjorie was laughing, holding a hot dog. Frank was smiling, a beer in his hand. Logan was a teenager, looking bored but present. And I was there, standing slightly to the side, smiling so hard my face looked strained, just happy to be included in the frame. We looked like a family. But a photograph is just a millisecond of light trapped on paper. It doesn't show the context. It doesn't show the unpaid bills on the counter inside. It doesn't show the silence in the car ride home. It doesn't show the cost. I looked at Marjorie's face in the photo. It was the same face that had just tried to steal my identity over the phone 15 minutes ago. I didn't throw the photo across the room. I didn't smash the glass. That would have been dramatic, and I was done with drama. I simply turned it over, face down, and slid it into a drawer. I walked back to the coffee table. I picked up the Liz Pendon's receipt. I picked up the cease and desist draft Dana had just forwarded to me. I placed them on top of the stack. I miss the little girl, too. Mom, I whispered to the empty room. But she couldn't afford you. I sat down on the floor, surrounded by the paper trail of my liberation. The sun was going down, casting long, cold shadows across the room. The apartment was silent again. I was ready. Saturday was coming, and I wasn't bringing a gift. I was bringing the bill. Saturday morning broke with a deceptive brightness. The sun glinted off the slush piles on Maple Ridge Drive, turning the gray street into something almost picturesque. The house at 4209 was dressed for a performance. A large banner, "Congratulations, Logan," was strung between the two oak trees in the front yard. Bundles of gold and black balloons bobbed in the wind, tethered to the porch railing like eager spectators. But the real audience was behind the curtains. I could see the neighbors, Mrs. Gable next door, the retirees across the street peeking through their blinds. In a suburb like this, a party this early in the day wasn't just a celebration. It was a statement. It was Marjorie saying, "Look at us. We are prosperous. We are generous. We are perfect." I parked my Honda 2 houses down. I wasn't alone. To my left stood Dana Klein, looking less like a strip mall lawyer and more like an executioner in a tailored wool coat. To my right was Aunt Corinne, smoking a cigarette with the grim determination of a general surveying a battlefield. "Showtime," Corinne muttered, exhaling a plume of smoke. "The notary's car is in the driveway. A gray sedan. She's inside." "We are right on schedule," Dana said, checking her watch. It was 9:15. The process server just turned the corner. I watched as a plain white sedan pulled up to the curb directly in front of my parents' house. A man in a windbreaker got out, carrying a thick manila envelope. He walked up the driveway with the brisk, purposeful stride of someone who ruins days for a living. I stepped out of the car. Dana and Corinne flanked me. We walked toward the house, not marching, just moving with the inexorable gravity of consequences arriving. The process server rang the bell. The door opened. Marjorie appeared. She was wearing a cream-colored dress, her hair perfectly coiffed, a string of pearls around her neck. She looked like the matriarch of a dynasty. For a split second, her smile was radiant, practice for the guests she expected later. Then she saw the man. Then she looked past him and saw me. The smile didn't just fade. It shattered. It fell off her face like cracked porcelain. "Marjorie Hartman?" the server asked, his voice carrying clearly in the morning air. "Yes," she whispered, her hand gripping the doorframe. "You are served," he said, thrusting the envelope into her hand. "Civil complaint and notice of lis pendens regarding the property at 4209 Maple Ridge Drive. Sign here, please." Marjorie stared at the envelope. She looked up at me, her eyes wide with a mixture of shock and fury. "What is this?" she hissed, ignoring the pen the man was offering. "Sienna. What have you done?" The commotion drew the others. My father, Frank, appeared behind her, looking pale and terrified. Logan strolled out, holding a coffee mug, wearing a future CEO t-shirt that was probably meant to be ironic but just looked sad. A few early guests, my cousins, Aunt Linda, who had been inside helping to set up, crowded into the doorway, their faces masks of confusion. "What's going on?" Aunt Linda asked, her voice shrill. "Is everything okay?" Marjorie tried to recover. She tried to force the smile back on. "It is nothing. Just a mistake. Just some paperwork mix-up." "It is not a mistake," Dana said. Stepping forward, her voice was calm, professional, and loud enough to reach the neighbors across the street. "I am Dana Klein, attorney for Sienna Garcia. We have just served Mrs. Hartman with a lawsuit seeking a constructive trust and declaratory judgment. There is a recorded lis pendens on this property as of Thursday morning." The words hung in the air, lis pendens. Even if they didn't know Latin, they knew the tone. It sounded like trouble. "Lawsuit," Aunt Linda gasped. "Sienna is suing you." The murmur started then, a low ripple of whispers among the relatives, suing her own mother. "On graduation day, what is happening?" Marjorie's face flushed a deep, blotchy red. "Get off my property," she snarled at Dana. "Get out of here. You are ruining my son's day." "We are on the public sidewalk, Mrs. Hartman," Dana said coolly, "and we are here to ensure that no fraudulent transfer takes place today." "Is there a notary inside?" Before Marjorie could lie, the door opened wider. A woman in a business suit stepped out, looking confused. She was holding a leather portfolio. This was Beverly, the notary. "Mrs. Hartman," the notary asked, "is there a problem?" "We need to sign the deed package if you want to make the FedEx cutoff." "There is a problem," I said. I spoke for the first time. My voice surprised me. It wasn't shaky. It was steel. "Beverly, is it—" The notary looked at me. "Yes. My name is Sienna Garcia. I am a beneficiary under a recorded memorandum of trust affecting this property. I am informing you that there is active litigation regarding the title of this house. If you notarize a transfer today, you are participating in a fraudulent conveyance." I held up the copy of the lis pendens receipt. Beverly stopped. She looked at the receipt, then at Marjorie, then at the stack of papers in her own hand. Notaries are risk-averse creatures. Their stamp is their livelihood. They do not stamp grenades. Is this true? Beverly asked Marjorie. Is there a lawsuit? It is frivolous, Marjorie shouted, waving the envelope the process server had given her. My daughter is just jealous. She is trying to blackmail us. Logan stepped forward. He walked down the porch steps, trying to look intimidating. He stopped at the edge of the lawn, sneering at me. You are pathetic. Sienna, he spat. You really couldn't handle it. Could you? You couldn't handle me getting something nice for once. You had to make a scene. You are just jealous that Mom and Dad actually want to help me. Help you? I asked, looking him in the eye. Is that what you think this is? Yeah, Logan said, puffing out his chest. They are giving me a start. Something you never needed because you are so perfect. But you are not perfect. You are just a bitter bitch. The crowd on the porch gasped. Aunt Linda covered her mouth. Logan, I said softly. Do you know what a HELOC is? What? He blinked. Do you know what a judgment lien is? Do you know that if you sign those papers today, you aren't just getting a house, you are getting a $42,000 debt to a food supplier, and a $150,000 debt to Northbridge Bank, and a $400,000 new mortgage that Mom is taking the cash from. Logan's sneer faltered. What are you talking about? She isn't giving you an asset, Logan, I said. She is giving you a liability. She is using your clean credit to refinance the house, take the cash out to pay her debts, and leave you holding the bag. Liar, Marjorie screamed from the porch. She looked wild now, the pearls shaking around her neck. Don't listen to her. Logan, she is lying. She wants the house for herself. Dana stepped in again. We have the documents, Mr. Hartman, the search results, the liens. It is all public record. If you sign that deed, you are bankrupt before you even cut the cake. The whispers grew louder. Bankrupt liens. Cash out. The neighbors were definitely watching now. Mrs. Gable had come out onto her porch with a broom, making no pretense of sweeping. Then, a black car pulled up behind the process server's sedan. A man in a sharp suit got out. He carried a briefcase. He looked at the scene, the balloons, the shouting mother, the process server. The lawyer and he sighed. Who is that? Corinne asked, squinting. That, Dana said, a small smile playing on her lips, is the representative from the title company. I sent them the list pendants via email 10 minutes ago. They must have had a closing officer in the area. The man walked up the driveway. He ignored Logan. He ignored me. He walked straight to the notary. Beverly? He asked. Yes. I am Mark from First American Title. We are the underwriters for the refinance on this file. He turned to Marjorie. Mrs. Hartman, I am afraid we have to issue a stop order on this closing. What? Marjorie looked like she had been slapped. Why, we are ready to sign. We received notice of a filing defect, Mark said diplomatically. Specifically, a lis pendens recorded yesterday, and we have flagged some irregularities with the payoff history of the previous mortgage. Irregularities, Frank spoke up, his voice trembling. What kind of irregularities? Mark looked at Frank, then at me. We have reason to believe the previous mortgage was satisfied by a third party who has asserted an equitable interest. Until that interest is cleared, we cannot insure the title. The refinance is dead. The silence that followed was absolute. The wind rustled the congratulations banner. A balloon popped somewhere in the distance. The refinance was dead. The cash out was dead. The money Marjorie needed to save her restaurant, the money she had promised Cisco, the money she was going to steal from the equity I built, it was gone. Marjorie stood there, trembling. Her plan had evaporated in the span of 5 minutes. She looked at the guests, who were staring at her with a mixture of pity and suspicion. She looked at Logan, who was looking at her with dawning horror. Mom, Logan asked, is it true? Were you taking cash out? Marjorie didn't answer him. She turned her eyes to me. She walked down the steps. 1, 2, 3. She stopped at the edge of the sidewalk, inches from my face. I could smell her expensive perfume, now mixed with the sour scent of fear. "You happy now?" she whispered. Her voice was a venomous hiss, meant only for me. "You happy? You humiliated your mother? You want the whole neighborhood to see me stripped naked. You want them to see me crawl." I looked at her. I looked at the woman who had told me I was strong so she didn't have to be. I looked at the woman who had taken my money for 5 years and then tried to erase my name. "I don't want them to see you crawl." "Mom," I said, my voice calm, barely above a whisper. "I just want them to see the truth." "You are destroying this family," she said, tears of rage welling in her eyes. "Over money, over a stupid house." "No," I said. "I am saving the family from your fraud, and as for the house, it was never yours to give." I turned to Dana. "Are we done here?" "We are done," Dana said. "The closing is stopped. The lawsuit is served. The title is frozen." Good. I turned back to my car. I didn't look at Logan. I didn't look at Frank. I walked away, leaving them on the lawn with their balloons and their lies. Behind me, I heard Marjorie's voice, shrill and desperate, trying to explain to the notary, trying to explain to the neighbors. "It is just a misunderstanding. My daughter she is unwell." But nobody was listening to the words anymore. They were looking at the papers. They were looking at the process server getting back into his car. The performance was over. The house lights were on, and the set was falling apart. The lawn was no longer a party venue. It was an open-air courtroom, and the jury was made up of my neighbors in their bathrobes and my relatives holding half-inflated balloons. The wind had picked up, whipping the congratulations banner so hard it snapped against the tree bark like a whip. I had started walking away, but the gravity of the scene pulled me back. Marjorie wasn't done lying, and I wasn't done dismantling the stage. Aunt Corinne stepped forward. She didn't look at Marjorie. She looked at the crowd. She held up 2 pieces of paper, pressing them flat against her clipboard to stop them from fluttering away. "You want to know why this party is happening today?" Corinne asked. Her voice was gravel and smoke, cutting through the murmurs. "You think it is because Logan graduated, or because Marjorie is generous?" "Corinne, shut up!" Marjorie shrieked. She lunged forward. "But my father—" Frank caught her arm. He looked dazed, like a man waking up from a long coma. "Let her speak. Margie," Frank said. His voice was weak, but it was there. Corinne nodded at me, then turned the papers toward the family. "Exhibit A," Corinne announced, pointing to the first sheet, the notice of default from Cisco Food Services, sent to Marjorie's diner, dated February 12th, demanding immediate payment of $42,000 or legal action will be taken. She flipped to the second sheet. "Exhibit B," she continued, a text message from Marjorie to Logan, also dated February 12th. "We are going to transfer the house. I have a plan to get the cash." Corinne lowered the clipboard. The dates match exactly. She didn't decide to gift the house because she loves her son. She decided to move the house because she got a bill she couldn't pay. She needed a new borrower because her credit is shot. She needed fresh meat. A collective gasp went through the group on the porch. Aunt Linda looked at Marjorie with horror. "Margie, is that true? You are using the boy." "No," Marjorie shouted. She was sweating now, her foundation cracking around the lines of her mouth. "It is a coincidence Corinne is twisting things. She always hated me." Dana Klein stepped into the circle. She didn't shout. She didn't need to. She held a tablet in her hand, the screen glowing bright in the overcast morning. "Mrs. Hartman," Dana said, "let's talk about the mortgage. You told your family you paid it off. You told everyone you owned this house free and clear." "I do," Marjorie insisted. "I paid it. Sienna helped a little with the monthly bills, but I managed it." "Then explain this," Dana said. She swiped the screen and held it up for Frank to see. "This is an inquiry from Northbridge Community Bank regarding a home equity line of credit. Opened 6 months ago. Limit $150,000. Balance drawn $149,500. Frank squinted at the screen. He read the numbers. His mouth opened, then closed. $150,000, Frank whispered. Margie, you said that loan was for $10,000, to fix the roof at the diner. You lied to your husband too, I asked. I was standing near the mailbox, watching the unraveling. Marjorie turned on Frank. I had to. You worry too much. I needed capital. Frank, to save the legacy, and I was going to pay it back with the refinance today. Wait, Frank said. He pulled his arm away from her. The refinance. You told me the papers I signed yesterday were just to lower the rate. You said it was a rate and term adjustment. It was, Marjorie pleaded. No, Mark. The title company representative interjected. He shook his head, looking at his own file. Mr. Hartman, the application in this package is not for a rate and term refinance. It is a cash-out refinance. The loan amount is $400,000. The payoff to the existing creditors is listed as priority. After paying off the hidden HELOC and the closing costs, there would have been about $200,000 in cash remaining. And where was that cash going? I asked Mark. According to the disbursement instructions, Mark said, checking a page. The surplus funds were to be wired to Hartman Dining, LLC. My father stumbled back as if he had been punched. He hit the porch railing and slumped against it. You were going to strip the equity, Frank said. All of it. Sienna's money, our retirement, all of it into the restaurant. It is our business, Marjorie screamed, abandoning the denial. It is our future if the restaurant fails. We have nothing. I did it for us. You did it for your ego, I said. The focus shifted to Logan. He was standing by the cooler, holding his champagne flute like a foreign object. He looked small. The future CEO shirt seemed to hang loose on his frame. And you? A voice called out from the back of the crowd. It was my cousin Sarah. She wasn't a close cousin, but she worked in admissions at the state university. She was looking at her phone. I just checked the alumni database for Arizona Global, Sarah said. Her voice was confused. Because I wanted to send Logan a networking invite. But Logan, you aren't listed. Logan froze. The system is slow, he mumbled. It takes time to update. I called the registrar's automated line, Sarah said. Logan Hartman, withdrawn, October 2022. The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush bone. Withdrawn? Aunt Linda asked. But we bought you a laptop. We sent you money for books last semester. Logan looked at his shoes. He looked at Marjorie. Mom said it was okay, Logan blurted out. He pointed a shaking finger at Marjorie. She said I could take a break. She said if I just played along with the house thing, I could use the money to start my crypto trading. She said I didn't need the degree if I had the capital. You idiot, Marjorie hissed at him. Shut up. So there is no graduation, I said. There is no degree. There is no job. Just a dropout and a mother conspiring to steal $400,000 from a house I paid for. Mark, the title repus, looked at the papers the notary was holding. He frowned. Beverly, he said to the notary, let me see the signature page Mr. Hartman signed yesterday. Beverly handed him the clipboard. Mark studied it for a second, then looked at Marjorie. This document, Mark said, his voice dropping to a serious, professional tone. The date is written in blue ink, the signature is in black, and the loan amount it looks like it was filled in after the signature. So, Marjorie challenged, Frank signed it blank because he trusts me. That is fraud, Mark said. That is material alteration of a legal instrument. Mrs. Hartman, if you filled in that loan amount after your husband signed it, without his express presence and consent to the specific figure, you have committed a felony, and if Beverly notarized a signature she didn't witness, she is going to lose her license. Beverly snatched the clipboard back, her face pale. I didn't notarize it yet. I refused. I am leaving. She started packing her bag frantically. The dominoes were not just falling. They were exploding. Marjorie looked around. Her allies were gone. The neighbors were filming with their phones. The family was staring at her like she was a stranger. She walked over to me. She grabbed my elbow. Her grip was hard, painful. Walk with me, she whispered. She dragged me toward the side of the garage, away from the immediate circle of the crowd, but not out of sight. What do you want, Mom? I asked, wrenching my arm free. Listen to me, she hissed. Her eyes were darting around wildly. We can fix this. We can spin this. I will tell them it was a surprise investment for you. We can split the equity. I will give you half, 200,000. You take the cash, walk away, and let Logan have the title. We save face. You want to bribe me with my own money? I asked. Money you don't even have yet. Money you were going to steal. It is better than nothing, she pleaded. If you blow this up, nobody gets anything, the bank takes it all. Just take the deal. Sienna, don't be stupid. $200,000 is a lot of money. I paid $680,000, I said. Your math is off. Please, she said, and her voice broke. They are looking at me. They are all looking at me. You can't leave me like this. I am your mother. I gave you life. I looked at her. I saw the fear. But I didn't see regret. I only saw damage control. You gave me life, I said, and then you spent 30 years sending me the bill. I will give you another house, she rambled. The rental property in Florida, Grandma's old place. It has equity. We can swap. Grandma's place was sold 3 years ago, I said. I saw the records. Mom, you sold it to pay for the remodel of the diner that never happened. She stopped. She stared at me. She had run out of lies. You checked everything, she whispered. Everything. I walked back to the driveway. I stood next to Dana. The crowd had shifted. In the beginning, they were curious, maybe even annoyed that I was crashing the party. But now, the atmosphere was different. It was heavy with disgust. They weren't looking at Marjorie because she was broke. They knew people struggled. They were looking at her because she had taken her daughter, the one who worked, the one who saved, the one who fixed things and tried to turn her into a ghost. She had turned her own child into a line item on a balance sheet to be erased. She tried to cut a side deal, I said loud enough for Frank to hear. She offered to split the stolen money with me if I kept my mouth shut. Frank covered his face with his hands. Logan sat down on the cooler, looking like a child who had lost his balloon. It is over, Marjorie, Dana said. The gig is up. Just then, Dana's phone rang. It was a sharp, piercing sound in the quiet street. Dana looked at the caller ID. She held up a finger. This is Dana Klein, she answered. She listened. Her face remained impassive, but her eyes locked onto Marjorie. Yes, I understand. Yes, the client is here. Yes, the adverse party is here. Yes, I will inform them. Dana hung up. She looked at the title rep, then at Marjorie, then at me. That was the legal department at Northbridge Community Bank, Dana announced. Marjorie flinched. What do they want? They saw the list pendants, Dana said, and they flagged the attempt to override the security freeze yesterday. They have reviewed the file. She paused, letting the words land. Marjorie, because you attempted to transfer the title without their permission, and because you misrepresented the occupancy status of the home on your HELOC application, claiming it was owner-occupied when you were planning to transfer it to a non-borrower, you have triggered the acceleration clause in your loan agreement. What does that mean? Logan asked, his voice trembling. It means, Dana said, that the bank is calling the loan. The entire $150,000 balance of the HELOC is due. Not in 30 years, not in monthly installments. Dana checked her watch. It is due immediately, as of today. If it is not paid in full by the close of business, they will initiate foreclosure proceedings on Monday morning. Marjorie made a sound like a dying animal. She slumped onto the cold concrete of the driveway. I don't have it, she sobbed. I don't have it. We know, I said. I looked at the house. The balloons were sagging now. The banner was twisted. The performance was officially canceled. You wanted a graduation. Mom, I said, looking down at her. You just got one. Welcome to the real world. The wind on Maple Ridge Drive had turned biting. carrying the sharp scent of oncoming snow. The party balloons were now just sad, shriveled spheres of latex dragging on the frozen grass. The congratulations banner had ripped loose at one corner, flapping violently against the oak tree like a flag of surrender. The silence that followed Dana's announcement was not the silence of peace. It was the vacuum of a collapsed star. The neighbors were no longer pretending to sweep their porches or walk their dogs. They were standing still, phones lowered but eyes wide, witnessing the public execution of the Hartman family myth. My mother sat on the driveway, her cream dress stained with the grime of the concrete. She looked at her phone, which had just vibrated with a terrifying finality. "It is an email," Marjorie whispered. Her voice was thin, stripped of all its usual theatrical resonance. "From the bank." "Read it," I said. I didn't shout. I stood over her, hands in my pockets, feeling the cold air bite my cheeks. "Notice of default and acceleration," she read, her hand trembling so violently she had to brace it against her knee. "Due to material misrepresentation of collateral status and unauthorized attempt to transfer title, the bank hereby demands immediate payment of the full outstanding balance of $149,500. All credit privileges are revoked. All linked accounts are frozen pending investigation." She looked up at me. The terror in her eyes was real this time. There was no audience to play to, no narrative to spin. The math had finally walked into the room. "They froze the checking account," she said, tears spilling over. "The restaurant payroll, the vendor checks, it is all frozen." "Because you linked them," I said. "You tied everything to this house. You thought the house was an infinite well. You didn't realize it was a sinkhole." Dana stepped forward, opening her briefcase. She pulled out a clean, crisp document. It wasn't a lawsuit this time. It was a settlement agreement. "The time for games is over. Marjorie," Dana said, "you have lost control of the board. You cannot refinance. You cannot sell. You cannot gift. You are insolvent. And you are sitting on a property that is legally radioactive." Logan stood up from the cooler. His face was a mask of adolescent fury. He walked toward me, his hands balled into fists, though I knew he wouldn't swing. He was a coward who fought with guilt, not knuckles. "This isn't fair," Logan shouted, his voice cracked, betraying the boy inside the man. "You can't do this. It is family. You are ruining everything because you are obsessed with money. It is not fair." I looked at him. I looked at the brother I had subsidized for half a decade. "Fairness," I said, testing the word on my tongue. "You want to talk about fairness. Logan, fairness is paying for your own degree. Fairness is not faking a graduation to scam your parents. Fairness is not taking a house that your sister paid for so you can gamble the equity on crypto. I was going to pay you back," he yelled. "Once I made it big." "You were never going to make it big," I said, "because you have never finished a hard thing in your life. Fairness starts with the person paying the bill, and today the bill is due." I turned to Dana. "Show them the clause." This was the twist. This was the knife I had kept sheathed for 5 years. Dana flipped the memorandum of trust to the final page. She pointed to a paragraph in small, dense text. It was Section 9, Subsection C. "Marjorie, Frank," Dana said, "do you remember signing this 5 years ago when the foreclosure was days away and you were crying at the kitchen table?" "I signed a lot of things," Frank mumbled. He was leaning against the porch railing, looking at the ground. "You signed a conditional assignment of interest," Dana explained. "Subsection C states that upon the full satisfaction of the underlying mortgage debt by the beneficiary that is Sienna, if the original grantors that is you fail to reimburse her within 30 days, the equitable title converts automatically to the beneficiary to secure the debt." Marjorie blinked. "What does that mean?" "It means," I said, stepping closer, "that when I wired that final payment 2 weeks ago and you didn't pay me back, the trust activated. You are not the owners of this house anymore. Mom, you are the occupants. I am the owner," she gasped. No, That is not legal. It is perfectly legal, Dana said. And it was notarized. You signed it because you were terrified of losing the roof over your head, and you never thought Sienna would actually pay off the whole thing. You bet against her persistence. You lost. The reality settled over the lawn like a heavy blanket. The house the symbol of Marjorie's status. The anchor of her ego had belonged to me for 2 weeks, and she hadn't even known it. She had been planning a party in a house she didn't own, to give away a title she didn't hold. So, Frank's voice was dry, raspy. So, we are homeless. I looked at my father. I saw the fear in his eyes, the same fear I had seen 5 years ago. And despite everything, despite the betrayal and the silence and the cowardice, I felt a pang of pity. Not forgiveness, just pity. No, I said. I am not you, Mom. I don't use people and then throw them away. I nodded to Dana. She handed the clipboard to Marjorie. This is a lease agreement, I said. Marjorie stared at the paper. A lease, a fixed-term residential lease, I clarified. I am giving you 60 days. You have 60 days to find a new place, an apartment, a condo, something you can actually afford. You are kicking us out, Marjorie wailed. Your own parents. I am giving you 2 months of free rent to transition, I said. That is more than you deserve, but there are conditions. I pointed to the clauses on the second page. Number 1. The restaurant debt is yours. You will not use this address for any business correspondence. You will not list it as collateral. If Cisco or the bank comes for this property, I will evict you immediately. Number 2, I continued. Logan leaves today. What? Logan stepped back. Where am I supposed to go? You are 25, I said. Figure it out. Couch surf, get a job, go back to Arizona. I don't care. But you are not living in my asset. And number 3, I said, looking straight at Marjorie. You will sign a statement acknowledging that the house was preserved by my funds. You will correct the record with the family. No more stories about your grit. No more myths about your management. You tell the truth, or you leave by sunset. Marjorie looked at the neighbors. She looked at her sister-in-law, Linda, who was shaking her head in disgust. She looked at the process server who was still sitting in his car, writing notes. She realized she had no leverage. The bank had frozen her money. The law had frozen the title. And I held the keys. Frank, she whispered, looking to her husband for one last save. Frank looked up. He looked at the house he had lived in for 30 years. He looked at the banner flapping in the wind. Then he looked at me. Sign it, Margie, he said softly. Frank, sign it, he said, his voice gaining a sudden, surprising strength. It is over. We lost. We shouldn't have done it. We shouldn't have listened to you about the refinance. I did it for us. You did it for the image, Frank shouted, snapping at last. And now the image is gone. Sign the damn paper so we have a place to sleep tonight. Marjorie trembled. She took the pen from Dana. She didn't read the document. She just signed it. Her hand shaking so hard, the signature looked like a seismograph of an earthquake. Thank you, Dana said, pulling the clipboard away before Marjorie could change her mind. We will file the updated deed and the lease agreement on Monday. You have until June 1st to vacate. Marjorie didn't move. She sat on the driveway, surrounded by the wreckage of her pride. Logan had already retreated to his car, throwing his bag in the back seat, fleeing the scene of his humiliation. The guests were leaving. Aunt Linda walked past me. She stopped, looked at me, and hesitated. Sienna, she said, we didn't know. You didn't ask, I said. She nodded, shame coloring her cheeks, and walked away. The show was over. The audience had dispersed. The critics had delivered their verdict. I turned to Dana. Thank you. Send the bill to my office. This one is on the house, Dana said, smiling. I haven't enjoyed a Saturday morning this much in years. I will see you Monday. She got into her car and drove away. I was alone with my parents. Frank was helping Marjorie up. They looked old, sudden, visibly old. They walked toward the front door, not as the masters of the manor, but as tenants. I didn't follow them inside. I didn't want to go inside. The air in there was stale, recycled, full of ghosts I had just exorcised. I walked up the porch steps. I reached out and placed my hand on the front door. The wood was cold, solid, for 5 years. This door had represented a burden. It had been a mouth that ate my salary. It had been a threat. Now, under my hand, it just felt like wood. It felt like an asset. It felt like a decision I had made, and a decision I had finished. I turned around and looked out at the street. The wind had died down. The snow was starting to fall, light dusting covering the muddy tire tracks on the lawn. I walked down the driveway to my Honda. I got in, started the engine, and put it in gear. I didn't look back at the window to see if they were watching. I didn't care if they were watching. I wasn't the daughter who needed their approval anymore. I was the woman who had balanced the ledger. As I drove away, leaving 4209 Maple Ridge Drive in the rearview mirror, I felt a lightness in my chest that I hadn't felt since I was 17. I didn't break the family. I just broke the habit of using my name to pay the debts, and then using someone else's name to take the credit. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope it brought you the same satisfaction it brought me to write it. I would love to know where you are tuning in from. Are you listening from your car, your kitchen, or maybe your office desk? Let me know in the comments below. Let's share our thoughts. Please don't forget to subscribe to the Maya Revenge Stories channel, like this video, and hit that hype button so this story can reach even more people. Stay strong and keep your receipts.